Now, the IBM approach initially to these store systems were based on a key entry approach. That is, the checkers who normally would key in the price into the cash register would key in a code of the item, on the item, into the computer terminal at the cash register station. And that code would be captured. It would be used to look up the price and the description of the item and print that on the checkout slip. And it would store that sale in its memory so that that data could be collected and then used for many, many different things to improve the operations of the store. It became obvious to me over a reasonably short period of time working with the customers that they were thinking that the key entry system really wasn't going to pay off the kind of benefits that were needed, and that it would slow down the checkout operation, which was not acceptable. You'd have to key in more digits than just a 2 or 3 digit price amount. And the industry committee, the UPC subcommittee, was working toward a symbol that could be scanned at the register, which would provide much higher throughput at the checkout and more accuracy in capturing the potentially more accuracy in capturing the item information that's needed by the store. And so I had, with the help of my team, had to encourage the development people to move in that direction. And it took a little while, but they began to try to experiment. They didn't have the money to develop a scanning system and a symbol, but IBM had done some work in various laboratories, I think primarily in the Los Gatos Research Center in California, the IBM Center in California, on a code which they referred to as the delta distance code. And this symbol had the characteristics that could very well answer the needs of the food industry. And so the people in Raleigh were aware of that. As a matter of fact, one of the key people in Raleigh that was running the operations had spent time in Los Gatos and was involved with and familiar with that work. Paul McEnroe, Dr. Paul McEnroe. And so they were working with that technology, that symbol technology. And actually Paul McEnroe, who was the chief of the lab, the engineering work in Raleigh on this project, had started some work sort of behind the closed doors on a scanner that would scan a symbol like the one that they were experimenting with, but he didn't have funding for it. And one day, Bob Evans, who was president of the division that this unit was located in, positioned in, came for a visit and see how things were going and so forth. And Paul McEnroe started talking with him about this scanning approach, and he didn't want to have anything to do with that. But Paul took him back in the back room and showed him the mock-up of what they had in mind and what they thought they could accomplish and so forth. And Paul was very persuasive, apparently. I was not present, and convinced Bob that they ought to do some work on this. So Bob Evans told Paul McEnroe that he would fund it for a year. But at the end of the year, he would be back to see it working. And if it didn't work, he would remove Paul's desk from his office and set it out on the street. And a year later, indeed, he did come back, and they handed Bob Evans a package of cigarette with a symbol on it, and he threw it and spun it across the laser, and it clicked and rang it up and put the name of the cigarette and the amount of the price on the printout. And Bob jokingly picked up the skirt of the table that this apparatus was sitting on, looked underneath to see who was under there making this happen. Nonetheless, that was the beginning, and the project was funded, and then the system that you see in the supermarkets today was developed.